Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to Triad Nation. As always, I'm your host, the omegatryhard, and today we have the overview for Path 1 in Abyss of Legends. So let's go ahead and just roll that intro. So, as you can see here, everything that I did for the easy path is going to be all on this spreadsheet. Every revive that I used, how many, the totals for units, revives used, all of that kind of stuff when I swapped my masteries. Everything is going to be here. Now, when I say everything, I don't mean the specifics. So if you want to see the specifics for each different fight, I'm going to be making videos over the coming weeks, one video per fight, breaking down exactly my thought process for each fight, mistakes I made, how I played it, all that kind of stuff. So I won't be answering any of those questions here, but if you want to know the total units that I used, revives, what the team that I used, if you don't have those answers, who you can alternate, all that kind of stuff, that's what this video is going to be for. So if you're only here for the stats, feel free to pause it or just let the video play and mute me and just look at this info. But yeah, so path 1 is going to be 20 fights if you include the collector. I spent a total of 1,696 units, with 456 of those units being for mastery swaps. So everything that you see here in parentheses is going to be for specifically cost of mastery swapping. So for instance, here on this Medusa fight, I didn't use any revives or worth of units. So I used 120% revive, but I didn't use any units on those revives. However, this fight still cost me 100 units because I had to switch over to Mystic Dispersion. These two here that were yellow, the reason that they're yellow is because they were solos. So of all 20 fights, I only got 2 solos, and that was these fights. Pretty easy fights, pretty easy to solo, consistent to solo, but yeah. Let's see, the MVP, obviously Aegon. Whatever team it is that you're going to be bringing, you want to make sure that you have one kind of anchor or powerhouse for the team, and obviously I have my 6-star rank 3 Aegon for that. The rest of my team is going to be here. I had Aegon, Doctor Doom, Nick Fury, Human Torch, and Heimdall. Heimdall was there strictly for support, for his synergy where when you die you gain indestructible and unstoppable. That really helps later in the path. So if you go over the cap limit, or if you slip up and get hit, if you're trying to do your heavy like suicide attack with Aegon, you have that extra barrier where if they hit you or stun you or something like that and you end up dying, well, he saves you and you can get that extra damage in. It's especially helpful for collector because a lot of the times you're just going to be taking that special attack to the face, and instead of just flat out dying, you can get that unstoppable and indestructible to buy you a couple seconds and do some more damage. If you don't want this synergy, you can use a Quake or Magneto House of X. Quake gives you the evade synergy with Nick Fury, so she's kind of only here, or not kind of, she is only here if you have Nick Fury. And then Magneto House of X, he has the charges that you can place 3 throughout the path, unless you're going to be using him for fights, which I've never seen anybody do, but I assume it's possible. You can use it to give Aegon more attack because he's a hero, and make it so your parries are passive. So a lot of people, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but some people bring him in for the collector because the passive parry stun is passive, so he can't shrug it off. So you're always going to be able to get that initial parry and at least some damage in. Me, what I opted for was Heimdall because I feel like Heimdall is worse early. So on your initial couple fights before you build up your true accuracy on Aegon, you can still get that random evade, get screwed, and lose your entire combo. Because if they chain stun you and it outlives that combo shield, you're just kind of screwed. But it's way better later in the path. Whereas Quake is really strong early when you're building up that combo, but once you build up the combo, you're not really going to be getting evaded very often. So you're not really going to be getting hit that often. And Magneto, it's only really good for 3 fights. You could maybe do it for like Iron Man Infinity War, Collector, and then like, I don't know, Invisible Woman or something like that. But for only 3 fights, it doesn't seem worth it to me. So I opted to Heimdall, and that's definitely who I would recommend. Human Torch I brought almost exclusively for Mephisto, but you can use him for a bunch of different fights. He's decent against Iron Man Infinity War because he does energy attacks, so you can build up your smolders really easy that way. He's decent for Mordo because, again, he's Mystic, so you're going to be gaining those smolders a lot. However, Mordo has really high energy resistance, so he's not ideal, but you can do it. Theoretically, I think he should work for Cyclops because you have to block the level 1s every other rotation, so you can build up smolders that way. Can also be used for Invisible Woman because he bypasses the miss and does a lot of debuffs, but I brought him just for Mephisto. Nick Fury I brought almost exclusively for Invisible Woman, as well as the 10% attack synergy that he brings for all of my hero champions, which is basically Aegon, so just an additional 10% for Aegon, which is always helpful. I ended up not using him for Invisible Woman. If I could go back, I might bring Stealth Spidey, just because my Nick Fury isn't duped, so it was really hard to keep up those tactical charges, and the damage wasn't as high as I would want it to be to get through her invisible shield or whatever, but nonetheless, he's a good synergy champion even if you don't end up using him. And Doctor Doom was my second anchor for basically anything that Aegon couldn't get. So all of the cosmics he just simply destroys because he staggers all of their buffs, as well as the unstoppable. He does a lot of damage with the special 2s when you build up your Furies from your special 3s. He does a lot of damage in just medium heavy cycles, so that's really important because that keeps your hit counter down, although you kind of build it back up when you use your special 1s, but it kind of all balances out. And then Aegon, yeah, Aegon is my carry. He's good for basically everything. At 999 combo, he goes unblockable on crits, so you easy openings, just hitting into their block, you go unblockable. And yeah, super powerful, easily the best champion in the game for Abyss. If you have him at rank 5 or 6-star duped, as long as he's duped, he'll be awesome for this. Even if it's low signature, you're just going to have to deal with more fights where you have to ramp up. So instead of having 999 Iron Man Infinity War, maybe you'll have it at Howard the Duck or Champion or something like that. So you'll still get there eventually. It's just a matter of how fast you want to get there. If you don't have this team, and I do think this is the best team that you can have for the initial path, these are different alternatives that you can use. So instead of Aegon, you can use a combination of Strife and Apocalypse because they greatly empower each other to increase their damage exponentially. Apocalypse specifically, with his synergy with Strife, makes it so every time he launches a special attack, his next special attack does more damage, and it can get out of hand very quickly how much damage that does. Strife, he's also another character that's kind of built for this kind of long-term content with his persistent charges, where he can have up to 100 telepath charges, and when he's at 100, he gains a bunch of attack. as well as if he has 20 active charges, active telepath charges that aren't persistent. With Apocalypse as a horseman, he goes unblockable. So, as well as his heavy attack and medium attacks not being able to be evaded, and that's where the most of his damage comes from. That plays well with the skirmisher charges because parry medium heavy only takes away 2 skirmisher charges and it's a ton of damage. So I honestly think Strife might be the best option for the single path for the most opportunities to do solos. But you have to keep in mind that against Ghost, Iron Man, Infinity Ward, and Howard the Duck, he's going to be a little bit weaker because he has class disadvantage. It's going to be a lot longer fights, but he can do tons of damage. If you don't have either of those, you can use Professor X because, again, with his prowesses and the way his playstyles go, he just kind of scales infinitely per fight, and he has very low hit counter because you ideally just want to parry heavy and then do special 2s or special 1s. If you don't have Doctor Doom, you can swap out for Symbiote Supreme ideally because he has a lot of damage in his special 2, very low hit counter when you have you're just launching special 2s, and yeah, with the bleeds he does a lot of damage, easy nullifies, power steals, all that kind of stuff. You can also do Dr. Voodoo, but it's basically, this should basically be any Mystic champion that nullifies a lot. You could use probably Diablo at this point with his rework, Dr. Voodoo, Black Widow Clairvoyant. You just have to try to manage your stacks, your skirmisher charges, so that you're doing as little hits as possible while also getting those nullifies off. Nick Fury, since the reason that I brought him was almost exclusively for Invisible Woman, if you're going to be swapping him, you can swap him for either another support character or another character that can deal with her. So characters with slows like still Spidey or She-Hulk. Yeah, I would obviously opt for just those two. Because for the easy path, the only thing that you really need him for is, again, that Invisible Woman or maybe Quake if you want to go for those two. But yeah, Human Torch we already went over, and Heimdall we already went over because he's basically just support. So this is basically everything that you need to know. The notes that I would give you are the fights that you must have answers for are Mephisto, because if you can't get past him, if you don't have an Incinerate immune that can deal with the power gain or really high damage, it's going to be a very, 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 very bad time. You can swap out Void for Human Torch as a way to deal with that. I think he's the next best option for Mephisto. However, you're not going to get the one shot, I don't think. And you're going to, again, try and manage your charges by just parry medium medium or parry medium heavy. And I think, honestly, I think that might be the only fight that you really need a hard counter to. You can kind of say Invisible Woman as well, but if you have Aegon or Strife or somebody that can easily break through that damage shield or that has a debuff, you can basically do it with anybody. It's just going to be a matter of how many revives is it going to take. Suicides and Mystic Dispersion at least level 3 are, in my opinion, necessary, because if you don't have Suicides, all of these fights where I had 1 or 2 revives, it's basically going to jump up at least 1 revive because you're going to have at least 60% less damage if you don't have Suicides. And the Mystic Dispersion for all of these that have Doom with no revives or 1 or 2 revives, you're going to be doing way less damage because you're not going to be gaining as much power to be able to get into your cycle. As well, if you're using like a Symbiote Supreme instead of Doom, your power is just going to be so slow that your damage is just going to be basically non-existent except for very specific windows. So if you don't have Suicides or Mystic Dispersion at least level 3, I would say hold off, save for those masteries, and then jump into this. Again, they're not necessary. You can do it without it, but it's going to be a lot more expensive because you're going to be using at least one revive per fight, which is going to bump up everything, all the costs overall. The other thing that I would say is an absolute must is Limber 5. I did not realize how important this mastery was, but every hit that the opponent does into you that actually makes contact, like hits you, not into your block or anything like that, has, I think, a 10% chance to stun you for like 4 seconds or something like that, or 2 seconds. And all of their special attacks have a 100% chance to stun you. So basically, if you have no Limber or just Limber 1, you're going to get stunned and you're going to get infinitely stun locked, and it's basically a kill. You're just dead, a revive, whatever you want to consider it. However, if you have Limber 5, it cuts the duration in half, which basically makes it so that you can take that first stun or whatever, block the rest of it, and you'll be good. This is probably the most important mastery that you need. There's a ton of times that on my run where I got evaded, I missed dexing something, or I missed a parry, got hit, and even though I got stunned, I was able to shrug it off so that I can block the rest of the attack. If I didn't have Limber, that would have been a kill, and all of these revives, all of this stuff would have been probably tripled. Because as you can see here in my stupid ass mistakes column, I made quite a bit of them. 20 to be exact. Now, not all of these were missed parries and stuff like that, but probably anywhere from 10 to 15 of them were. And if I didn't have Limber, you could probably have doubled that. So all of these mistakes, yeah, some of them, like as you can see here, this was before the path even started. This mistake was not killing off Heimdall. So what I would suggest that everybody does at the beginning, if you're using this exact team, go into Thing or go into whoever, kill off Heimdall before you use Doctor Doom, because the way that Doctor Doom works, his solo synergy gives him, I think, plus 10% attack for each dead member on your team. So having Heimdall dead or your synergy champion dead just immediately gives him a 10% attack boost just for nothing. The same thing with Nick Fury. Nick Fury has a 10% attack boost for heroes, and that 10% is doubled if he's dead. So my stupid ass mistake right out of the gate was not immediately killing them off, so that Doom and Aegon were just flat out stronger for free. But yeah, that's basically all of my notes for this. There's certain fights that you're going to want to make sure that you swap masteries for. So basically, I would pick Aegon, go on a streak of Aegon for a little bit, use suicides for those, and then go on a streak of Doom or Torch for a little bit, switch to MD for that, and then just kind of keep alternating. Now, if you'll see here, it says don't switch. You might want to switch to go for the Howard the Duck, because it's a very annoying fight. With Aegon, you can get through it in like a revive or two. I think you might even be able to solo it if you have suicides on, but the cost to swap back to suicides is going to be more than just a couple revives. So I would suggest just keeping suicides on and keeping the MDs for this whole stretch of like 5 or 6 fights, just to keep the cost down, because at the end of the day, you're swapping masteries so that you can reduce the amount of revives that you're going to be using over X amount of fights. But if it cost 100 to swap, but it would have cost you 2 revives if you just stayed, those 2 revives are 80 units. So you end up using more units to swap and get the solo, as opposed to just not getting the solo and using those 2 units. So just keep that kind of thing in mind. But yeah, that's going to be it for this general overview. If you want to have any requests or comments, anything like that, go ahead and leave those all in the comments below, or reach out to me on Twitter or Discord. You can also find that in the description below. Yeah, but no matter what, thank you guys for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all of the thumbs up, for all of the thumbs down, for all of the comments, all of the subscribes, and everything in between. I really appreciate you guys and everything that you guys do. But no matter what, stay safe. Love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.